2000, let's talk about January 2023. Is now a good time to sell or buy a house
Yeah.
or invest in real estate in
So
general?
here's another cliche answer. So the best time to buy real estate is always 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because if you look at any 10-year period, so it's like I said, 2023, let's look at back to 2013, right? So did the house that you bought in 2013 go up in value between 2013 and 2023? Heck yeah, right? Now, if I bought a house in January of 2022, the value might be
Yeah.
lower today, right? But if I went to 2022 to 2032, almost certainly it's going to be higher, right? So
Yeah.
the short answer is January 2023 the right time to buy a house? Heck yeah. Um, if you're buying it for the right reasons. So if you need a place to live, yeah, would you rather pay a landlord who owns the real estate that's making the money off of your rent, or would you rather have that provide you with tax deductions and appreciation and all the other tax things that go along with it? Could your investment in 2023 lose value? Yep, it could lose a lot, possibly, but 10 years later, if you hold on to it, all those losses will be made up. And guess what? You still needed a place to live for the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's a rental property or it's or commercial property or property that you're going to live in, again, you just have to go through all the metrics, right, to make the right decision. And there's a tangent here, but a rabbit trail here, I should say. A lot of people are, waiting for 2008 to repeat itself, right? I'm not going to buy this house
Yeah.
because in 2023 home values are going to go down 20, 30%. Well, here's the fallacy there. First thing, real estate is not like the stock market where you're in what state, Paul? I forget.
I'm in New York.
You're in New York, okay, and
Hmm.
I'm in California now, in Utah, right? So the point is
Yeah.
that if I buy a share of Apple, whether I'm in Utah, California, or New York, it's the same share and it's the same price, right? Real estate's the total opposite. It's all local, right? So in your little town versus my Newport Beach versus Park City, Utah, the value of real estate is going to have its own thing. Right, it's going to be so it's very localized, and in fact, even within a town, even within a community, even within a street, even within a block, right? You're going to have things that are going to change the values of real estate. So you can't use those general principles that,
Yeah.
right? So that's the first fallacy. The second thing is, I've been in the mortgage business since 1987. And I will tell you that since 2008, we have uh, made loans to people, originated loans
Hmm.
to the most solid, best borrowers, ridiculously good loans, right? We weren't doing that, by the way, prior to 2008. We were really making some pretty crappy loans to a lot of people that shouldn't have borrowed money. And so, that whole house of cards came tumbling down. Well, now, you know, the people have equity in their real estate, a ton of it, right? That have bought in their house 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So they have that to give them some comfort. They generally have super low interest rates. Like I saw an ad from Bank of America, like the rates are the lowest in 2,000 years or something crazy like that. But they're the lowest interest rates ever, right? And so they're sitting on a 30-year fixed rate loan at 2.5% with $500,000 of equity in their home. Do you really think they're going to give that home back to the bank? No, it's not going to happen, right? Plus, you have a huge group of millennials that put off buying into the real estate market that are now really sick of renting and they want to buy into the real estate market. So you have a demand push, right, to keep prices
Yeah.
up. Plus, you have this other factor, which is building a home today is hard, right, because of government restrictions and there's not a lot of laborers around to build, right, because of our education system. We haven't produced enough plumbers and roofers and electricians and whatever. We got a lot of people that graduated from college and they can philosophize things, but they can't build a darn thing, right? So
Yeah.
so you have lack of inventory, you have high demand, you have all this kind of stuff. So all that stuff says, look, there's not going to be another crash. And I have a little. I think it's on my website where I talk about the 9 reasons that this is not 2008 all over again, right? So if you were my son, right, which you probably
Yeah.
could be, right? If you were my son and
Yeah.
you said, hey, Dad, I want to buy a house in January, I'd say, great, find one. Find the right house that does what you need to do and buy it and don't look back. And in 10
Yeah.
years, right, 10 years, if you buy, you think you're going to flip it and make a bunch of money, you got the wrong attitude. Buy real estate with the intention of holding on to it forever, but with the willingness to sell it at any time if the opportunity presents itself, right? and then you're not
Right.
gonna be in trouble. So long answer again. Sorry, I'm always building clocks.
Thank you. No, that's excellent. And then fixed rate versus adjustable rate. Someone new, they want to buy property, whether it's for the cash flow or to live in. Do you
Yeah.
recommend fixed rate or adjustable rate mortgage?
Yeah. So for most of my career, I was always recommending adjustable rates because the disparity between a fixed rate and adjustable rate was really big, right? Um, I don't think it's that big today, so you're probably better off getting a fixed rate. Certainly a year ago you were, when they're 2.5%. I would, for the last since 2008, it's been fixed, 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 right? But as the fixed rates go up and the variable rates eventually will go down, because right now we're at this weird place where the Fed Reserve, keeps adding on to their Federal Reserve rate, making it go higher and higher. So the short-term rates are pretty high. Remember that 3-month rate's paying 4%, the opposite
Yes.
side of the equation. But eventually, things are going to level out. They're going to lower their Fed funds rate, and then the fixed rates will still maybe be up here. And when that gap gets big enough, then the adjustable rate will make sense. So it goes back to like all my
Mm-hmm.
other answers. It all depends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what do you so two questions here. Recommended down payment for a home loan, but also how can buyers, minimize closing costs?
Okay. So down payment, that's a really relevant question too. So currently, you can deduct the interest on acquisition and indebtedness, the money you use to acquire a home, borrow, up to $750,000, right? So
Okay.
in our market, um, uh, uh, you can buy a home in that range and get a loan less than $750,000, but there's a lot of people that are buying starter homes well over $1 million. Okay, and so let's say you bought a home for $1.2 million, right? And you put $200,000 down. Well, you owe $1 million. Well, $250,000 of that $1 million you don't get to deduct from your taxes, right? So it's like a giant credit card. It's a $250,000 credit card. Interest that, even though the rate's relatively uh, up, lower than a credit card, 7% maybe or 6%, it's still $250,000 of credit card debt. So
Yeah.
if you're going to have $1 million loan, I would really work on getting um, that excess debt paid down to the 750, so at least 100% of the debt you have you can deduct from your taxes. Okay, so that's number one. And how
Makes
do you
sense.
do that? Yeah, how do you do that? By the way, there's a number of different strategies, and we won't go into those today because, again, we'll talk for hours about it. But so in that example, I would like to put enough money down so I at least don't borrow more than I can deduct, right? So I want to be able to, I don't want to borrow more than 750, right? Um, on the other hand, the more leverage you have, the greater the rate of return is going to be, right? So on investment properties, just going from the opposite direction, a lot of people want to pay cash for them, and and I know I'll sound a little glib here, but I go, are you crazy? Why would you want to do that? Your cash on cash return on a piece of real estate today might be only 3 or 4%. If we put 25% down, your return is going to go from 3 or 4% to maybe 9 or 12%. Same house,
Yeah.
right? But you're using leverage to increase your rate of return. Plus, the equity in the property is always at risk to creditors, right? Liability in that, that regard as well. Plus, you have a very illiquid asset, because the equity, the only way you can turn it into money again is to either sell the property or refinance, which costs you money to do that. Which brings me to the second part of your question: how do you keep your closing costs low? Um, I think that we should maybe even do this for another interview, because there are so many creative
Yeah.
ways
We
to
could.
reduce your closing costs. But the one thing I'll say as a general rule of thumb, people don't get this. When you go to the realtor, they go, the buyer pays this and the seller pays this, and the buyer pays that and the seller pays that, and they go through this closing cost statement where some people pay something, and the buyer pays something and the seller pays the other. Okay, the truth is the buyer's paying everything, right? Because the seller's got that all built in. They have to, right? Even though the seller pays the 5% real estate commission, the
Yeah.
buyer is the buyer that's paying that real estate commission. It's the buyer that's
That's
paying
true.
all it, right? So it's kind of a fallacy to say buyer pays, seller pays, right? But
That's
there's some
true.
right, and again, it's just a different way of looking at the same coin, and that's what we do a lot at Lifetime. We don't look at things for the way they're presented to us. We like to go backstage and see how things really are. right? Behind the scenes, look at it from, not the audience side, but from the, from the production side. So, but what I was going to say is that means that there's creative ways to get more tax benefits to shifting closing costs around. For example, you can pay points on a loan. Points is a point is a percent, right? So $100,000 loan, 1% be $1,000. Well, that point in acquisition alone, you can deduct that interest, right? You can deduct that $1,000 of additional interest, and you can ask the seller to pay those points for you. And if you do, you still get to deduct the interest along with the seller, right? So there's some games we can play, and again, we haven't been able to play these games to really until now because interest rates haven't gone up to make it worthwhile. But there's lots of games you can play with closing. And I say games, I mean there's lots of tweaks, strategies you can use with strategies that you can use with closing costs to help to improve your situation using taxes, right?
Great. Now, if you don't know Randy Luebke, he's well known. I'll give you some of his credentials. He's a registered financial consultant and an independent fiduciary investment advisor with over 35 years of experience.